Okay, guys, this is the Polecat cast number 92 after show. Last time I was this early. All right, now I'm just going to. I gotta put this on the screen. Fuck. What? What? Wait, what's the name of this one? Okay, I gotta put it on the screen here for the recording. We're going to go through this Christina Hoff Sommers article. Can I select the region? You son of a bitch. Oh, I see. It's this one. Alright. Alright. That's done. Enter. Okay. And I'll put it on the screen. There we go. Alright. So, how to Make Feminism Great Again. This is a commentary by Christina Hoff Sommers. So let's see what she has to say. I know that Christina Hoff Sommers has been really useful during the time of Gamergate, and she is a voice of reason from the feminist camp. But she is also still a feminist, so I'm kind of curious about what she has to say in this article, and I thought it could be interesting for us to look at. Hillary Clinton's defeat is wreaking havoc on the sisterhood. Celebrity feminists are especially distraught. Girl star Lena Dunham developed hives and fled to Sedona for spiritual renewal. Katy Perry took to Twitter to declare, "The revolution is coming." For feminist icon Robin Morgan, the election is proof that a diseased patriarchy is in a battle to the death with women. But less excitable analysts are drawing more sober conclusions. Perhaps the women's movement is too elitist and out of touch with ordinary citizens, especially working class women. That seems right, but I would go one step further. Today's feminism is not merely out of touch with everyday Americans, it's out of touch with reality. To survive, it's going to have to come back to planet Earth. First of all, it's time to stop calling the United States a patriarchy. A patriarchy is a system where men hold the power and women do not. Women do hold power in the United States. They lead major universities and giant corporations, write influential books, serve as state and federal judges, and even manage winning presidential campaigns. American women, especially the college-educated women, are the freest and most self-determining women in human history. Why pretend otherwise? All right, so that's interesting. Christina Hoff Sommers, as a feminist, has declared that the U.S. is not a patriarchy. Wow. Today's women... Okay, no, that's a quote from the article. Feminism is drowning in myth information. Oh, that's clever. Advocates never tire of telling us that women are cheated out of nearly a quarter of their salary, that 1 in 4 college women is sexually assaulted, or that women are facing an epidemic of online abuse and violence. Such claims are hugely distorted, but they have been repeated so often that they have taken on the aura of truth. Workplace discrimination, sexual assault, and online threats are genuine problems, but to solve them, women need sober analysis, not hype and spin. Exaggerated claims and crying wolf discredit good causes and send scarce resources in the wrong direction. Today's women's movement also needs to reckon with the fact that men struggle just as much as women. Modern life is a complicated mix of burdens and advantages for each sex. Too often, feminism focuses on gender inequities among elites, CEOs, MIT astrophysicists, US senators. It is true that there are too few women in those positions, but we need to consider the entire workforce for context. Most backbreaking, lethally dangerous jobs, such as roofer, logger, roustabout, and coal miner, to name a few, are done by men. It is men, especially working class men, who are disproportionately crushed, mutilated, electrocuted, or mangled at work. Activists lament the death of women, or the dearth of women in the Fortune 500, but they fail to mention the unfortunate 4,500, the approximate number of men killed on the job every year. Before I continue, I want to go back a little bit. She says, sexual assault and online threats are genuine problems. Okay, I'm okay with that, but also for men. I think that they actually in terms of online threats. I think men are far more likely to get them. Then there was something else too that stood out for me. Oh yeah, here when she mentioned CEOs, MIT astrophysicists, and U.S. senators. It is true that there are too few women in those positions. I don't know. I'm not. What I mean by that is, in my opinion, if you free women to do whatever they want to do, and most of them don't choose those positions, then how is it too few?
Yeah, that's something I always take exception to. It's like, oh, we need more. Well, maybe they don't want to do it, and that's why they're not doing it. It's like, why are you trying to, force what you think needs to be done on other people? It's like,
I mean, people are. I think that people could encourage women to it, like maybe not without like bringing like resources, money, or force to bear, but rather to say, hey, have you considered this as a good idea? Make it appealing. Try to entice them. That's totally fine because you're just expressing a desire to see that. However, if people don't choose to do it, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with society. It doesn't. Right.
This is a fake problem. This is an entirely fake problem. Okay, none of the feminists who are complaining that there aren't, well, I shouldn't say none, but most of the feminists who are complaining that there are not enough CEOs, MIT astrophysicists, and U.S. senators who are women, most of those feminists making those complaints are not becoming those things. They're not striving to become those things. Right. They're not going into astrophysics. They're not going into political science. They're not going into business management. They're studying international or interdisciplinary studies and sociology and shit like that. This is a completely manufactured problem. And the other end of this is, all right, they do not support all women who run for these positions. They only support women who run for these positions or strive for these positions from a feminist perspective. So what they're actually demanding here is tokenism that serves feminism. The moment that a woman is not a feminist and strives to be a CEO, an astrophysicist, a senator, a congressman, a president, and whatever, vice president, and isn't a feminist or doesn't support feminist promoted agendas, they torpedo her. So clearly, it's not about women in those jobs. It's about getting more power for feminists. Mm-hmm. Entirely manufactured.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Men are also the have-nots in education. Hispanic and Native American women are now more likely to attend college than white men. Unless we find ways to help them, a large and growing cohort of young men, white, black, Hispanic, you name it, are unlikely to find a place for themselves in the modern economy. When men languish, so do the women who love them. All right, before we continue on that, I also have a quick comment here too. I think it's absolutely true that men are failing in education, and part of it has to do with the fact that the academic system is rigged against them. It is run by feminist ideologues. The teachers mostly go with it, even the male ones. They sort of go along with this idea that boys in school and young men in college are just broken girls, and they just need to be fixed. But as another sort of side note, I will also put in is that when there is a problem with education in general, aside from that, and the problem I think is that first of all, I think that we put too much focus on college. And what I mean is, a lot of times people go to college and they take out immense numbers of loans and end up owing a humongous amount of money, and they don't actually get an education that's all that great that they can actually use in the real world.
Right.
And so I think that one of the things that we need is, first of all, I think that college itself, not because I know that, when the election was coming up, there were people talking about making college more affordable or making it free and all. But I think that if the quality of the education itself isn't improved in college, it's not going to matter. And then you're either going to, whether it costs money or not, it's going to cost somebody money. to send kids to school that isn't actually making them, a lot more prepared for the real world, because it's one of those, a lot of colleges these days, they make it as easy as possible for kids to graduate.
Right.
For
So
one,
turn
and they
them
don't.
out faster and make more money.
Yeah, so they can make more money, exactly, and so they can say, look at how often we how many kids graduate. So there's a couple reasons, but also, I don't like, we lived in a time, like a few decades ago, where college was not something that was for everybody. And that doesn't mean that there are, that the people who don't go are not smart. What that means is that there are people who go into trades that make a lot of money, and there's a lot of them now. And I mean, these are things like, air conditioning and heating, plumbing, other sort of, construction work for the city, etc. You don't need a college degree to do those things, and those things pay very well. And a lot of times, people who go into construction, people who go into architecture, people who go into all these other sort of, jobs that are not what people would consider to be dream jobs, but they are probably more important jobs. There should be some, I wouldn't force kids to do that, but they should certainly do work to make that stuff more attractive, so that we have more people doing it. Because right now, what we do is, trade schools. Because right now what we do is kids go to college because they're trying to figure out what they want to do, and then the college sort of financial administration, that basically the people who are essentially the salesmen of the college, they go around telling them, do you have a dream? And you're asking like a 17-year-old kid, what is your dream? And if they say, well, I want to make video games, then they're going to be like, oh, well, we have a program just for you. And then you pump out 100 video game designers, of which maybe 2 to 10 will actually go into the business, of which only a few of those will actually succeed. And then the realization is that, at the end of the day, you didn't need a degree to do any of that shit in the first place. Right. So I think that aside from, I agree with Christina Hoff Sommers is saying, in that education needs to take the nature of boys and men into account, and stop treating them like girls that just don't get it, and definitely focus on their education. However, on top of that, I would also say that the college thing doesn't matter as much, because college itself kind of sucks right now, for boys and for girls, because even though there are more girls graduating, you're just making more girls graduating with gender studies degrees that don't know what to do. So what they do is they go back into teaching, and they end up repeating the same bullshit to another generation of girls, or they end up going into journalism, where they basically try to become activists without, before they become news people. Right. So that's what I would say about that. All right. Anyway, within living memory, the American women's movement was a valiant, broad-based vehicle for social equality. It achieved historic victories and was rightly admired for its determination and success. But today, big feminism is a narrow, take-no-prisoners special interest group. It sees the world as a zero-sum struggle between Venus and Mars. But most women want equality, not war. Men aren't their adversaries. They are their brothers, sons, husbands, and friends. As Harry Kissinger reportedly said, no one will ever win the battle of the sexes. There's too much fraternizing with the enemy.
Brilliant.
That's good. Robin Morgan's death match with the patriarchy has always had limited appeal. Feminism needs to take women as they are, not as it wishes they would be. In a 2013 poll, Pew asked American mothers about their ideal working arrangement. 61% said that they would prefer to work part-time or not at all. Catherine Hakim, a sociologist at the London School of Economics, found similar preferences among Western European women. As journalist Tina Brown said, there are more tired wives who want to be Melania sitting by the pool than there are women who want to pursue a PhD in earnest self-improvement. Right. Well, I can't argue with that.
To be honest, if men had the privilege of making that choice, would they be that much different? They might do different things with their free time than women would. They might choose to do more active things, but maybe they wouldn't. But the fact is, who would go to a job they have because they have to earn money, as opposed to doing things that they're doing just because they want them? who would do that if they had the privilege of not having to support themselves because they have somebody else doing it for them.
Yeah, no, they would. I think that the when you sort of encourage and subsidize that kind of thing, then you're going to get that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's always going to be people who are going to find causes and strive to further those causes, whether it be like us with our political situation or whether it be science. There's always going to be people that are passionate about those things, and they'll put their effort into those things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that anybody wants to rely on an employer for their source of income if they don't have to.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea that this is just women is not. It's just that women have always had that privilege. Men have not always had that privilege. Feminists don't see this as a female privilege. They see it as a cage that women are trapped in, and they want to drag all of the women who see it as a privilege that they want to take advantage of that privilege. They want to drag all those women out because of the women who want to look equal to men.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. When women want the wrong things, feminists tend to write it off to entrenched sexism and internalized misogyny. But it's 2016, not 1960. Why not credit women with free will and respect their choices? Women's activists are now planning a women's march on Washington in January 21st. The organizers want to remind the new administration that women's rights are human rights and for the world to hear our voice in all caps. If I may offer some unsolicited advice, if that voice is calm and judicious rather than hyperbolic and harping, people just might listen. Okay. That's the end of the article. I thought that, because I didn't read this in advance, but I thought that Christina Hoff Sommers might have offered like more. But I guess what she's saying is that women, in order to make feminism great again, women gotta learn how to communicate and be able to self-criticize and be more adamant about the facts and stuff.
You know what though, Brian? I think maybe you were probably like, because we've been so conditioned dealing with feminism that everything is they try to turn everything into a complex, just a miasma, like a fucking, not a miasma, like just this giant
cloud.
Maze.
Oh, a maze.
Like a maze of like, it's never a simple solution, but like, I mean, that's pretty much what she's saying. This is a very simple solution. How do you make it better? You think, you don't turn into a wailing harpy and start screaming about all the patriarchy, blah, 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 blah. It's a pretty simple fix, Let cooler heads prevail, use your fucking brain, use some common sense. I mean, so it kind of like, maybe it's just that. I mean, that's kind of the way I see it. It's like I'm so used to the fucking feminists going off on these crazy, like, things about patriarchy and this, that, and the other, and trying to make these simple ideas into these very complex and extraneous situations, just that don't need to be that way. So
essentially she's saying be reasonable, but she's preaching to a brick wall if she's actually talking to feminists and not just talking about them as if she's talking to them.
Exactly.
To borrow the SJW lingo for a moment, #feminism was never great.
I said that when I put this up. Yes. Let me see here. Okay. I just want to look at one comment. This commentary was thought-provoking, but I take exception to the line where the author proposes more women want to be sitting by the pool than working in an advanced degree. That is condescending. Women who don't want to work outside of the home just don't sit around the pool. I know families who would love to have a parent stay home and raise the children, and it's not always the mother, but can't make it on one salary. I know other families where both mom and dad love their careers but struggle to find good childcare and balance between work and home. The issue is not feminism. It is creating a world where families could make their own choices without fearing economic or emotional havoc. It's about men and women working together to make the world a better place and raise a happy and healthy next generation, but we are failing. We are looking at what we don't have and probably don't need instead of focusing on working together to give families what they need to make their own good choices on how to lead productive lives without judgment from others who think that they know what's best for everyone.
These people act like the necessity for two-income families didn't come along until middle class and upper class women entered the workplace.
Mhm.
That's bullshit. There have always been families. In fact, there have been families before the child labor laws. There were families in which every person old enough to follow instructions had a job. 6-year-old kids had jobs, and they worked all day. They didn't go to school because the family needed to survive. That's the only way that they got food and shelter and clothing. And we've had some improvement. We've had a great deal of improvement where children are concerned, that they are not made to work. They can go to school, and they can have the free time that kids have today. But the fact is, it's nothing new for families to have to make that choice where both parents work, and all of their labor is needed in order to be able to achieve basic needs, to meet basic needs. It's, God, feminists are out of touch. And
Yeah.
the idea that this one person should have to support the other person staying home and everything, it's great if people are able to do that because they want to, but the fact is, men have been expected to do that forever, and their manhood has been questioned if they can't make it so that their wife doesn't have to work.